Now out in select cinemas throughout the world and on streaming in the USA is the documentary Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, which has been received extremely well by the critics and lifelong fans of Christopher Reeve, who portrayed the iconic superhero from 1978 to 1987. Directed by Ian Burnett and Peter Ettedgui, who were hired to take on this project. They had previously directed a documentary called McQueen, which covered the life and career of fashion designer Lee Alexander McQueen. This Christopher Reeve documentary was an independent production, but got picked up by Warner Brothers after an impressive reception at the Sundance Film Festival, with James Gunn pushing for it to have a theatrical worldwide release. The documentary details Chris's journey as an actor, how he became Superman, his instant success and fame in the 1980s, how he became the most recognisable person on the planet, and the path to his shocking accident in 1995. The story is not told in a linear fashion, as it starts out with his accident and jumps back in time to key moments, then jumps forward to his recovery and his extremely difficult situation, living without the ability to move his body below his neck, and the challenges of day-to-day life. As the story unfolds, it explores his relationship with Gay Exton, his first partner, and the mother of Matthew and Alexandra Reeve, and their eventual separation after the filming of Superman 4. It taps into his close friendship with Robin Williams and with Chris meeting Dana, who would play a big part in his life with the birth of his third child, Will, and the charity work that would come about after Chris's accident, with his move into political awareness of his and many others in his condition to bring about better care and support for those in need. There have been a couple of biographies produced for TV over the years on Chris's life, but nothing that was feature-length, and they were pretty straightforward in their presentation. What makes this so unique is that everyone close to Chris Reeve is involved, with his children, his ex-partner Gay Exton, who I believe hadn't discussed her relationship with Chris on camera before. We have interviews with his friends Glenn Close, Susan Sarandon, Jeff Daniels, Whoopi Goldberg, the doctors who were involved with Chris after his accident, and those involved in the charity to offer a unique insight into Chris's life. I've been a fan of Christopher Reeve since I was a child, and this isn't anything new to my friends and followers on YouTube. I've bored many to death with my Superman trivia and love for those films. The Superman movies were very much part of regular TV viewing in the UK growing up. Every bank holiday, Easter weekend and Christmas season without fail, one of the Superman films would be on, like a Bond film or Star Wars. So for those who grew up in the 80s and 90s, they were very much part of our childhood and pop culture. As I got older, I would collect anything I could find on the movies, raiding old movie memorabilia shops for posters, magazines, even newspaper clippings of Chris, and I would search through the latest movie magazines if there was any word on Superman 5. When he had his accident, I was heartbroken. How was this possible? The man who seemed invincible in the eyes of many children across the world was now seen as very much human. And at that age, it was difficult for me to understand and compute everything, only seeing bits and pieces on the news, and the reality would eventually sink in that he would never walk again. It felt like such a dark time to be a Superman fan. Growing up, I never had the chance to meet Christopher Reeve or get his autograph, but once he had his accident, I wanted to write a letter to him to let him know that I cared and wished him a speedy recovery. Like everyone else did, which the documentary covers, he got letters of appreciation from Paul McCartney, Robert De Niro, Bill Clinton, and even Diana, Princess of Wales. The letters of support became so overwhelming, they needed a team to manage them. The documentary is an emotional roller coaster. In the first 15 minutes or so, you will begin to get teary-eyed. And other key moments will get to you, as my girlfriend was in floods of tears like I was. Hearing his children talk about these difficult moments as they struggle to hold back their tears just makes you start crying. These heavy moments of sadness are heart-wrenching, but the filmmakers tried to offer moments of levity to bring in other events of happiness, so it creates a nice balance to not just leave the audience in floods of tears for 90 minutes or so, because you will end up an emotional wreck. When Chris passed away in October of 2004, I was 22 years old. It was deeply upsetting to hear the news, but I knew at this point in time it would be inevitable. Someone in that condition only had a certain lifespan, and with Chris's strength and willpower, he lived longer than anyone expected. But with him now gone, it was like a part of my youth had gone as well. I was always hoping he would be able to walk again, and it was just a shame he never got the chance. He was only 52 years old, and then his wife Dana dies of lung cancer in 2006. It was just horrendously bad luck. She was healthy and never smoked. When watching it, you feel so sorry for Will Reeve. The editing in the documentary is extremely well done, as it jumps back and forth in time to cover Reeve's life. It doesn't come across as disjointed or lost in its narrative. It flows along seamlessly, as it introduces other people into the story without them feeling shoehorned in. It just naturally plays out and you never feel lost or confused. With Warner Brothers acquiring it, it seems to have helped with any legal clearance for using clips, and making use of John Williams' main theme, which opens the documentary with a great montage trailer, which really gets you excited to watch it. The documentary is beautifully scored by composer Ilana Kerry, who worked on such films as Stardust, Kick-Ass, Black Sea and many others. He strikes the right balance between the emotional moments and the uplifting optimism Reeve had about his career and moving forward with his accident. There is some great original imagery in the film, with this Greek statue of Christopher, which begins to crack with kryptonite as his body becomes damaged over the years. It's a great piece of visual storytelling to show you this powerful man who, without his control, begins to lose his abilities. The documentary isn't afraid to show Reeve in a negative light. They address the criticism he received when they used CGI to show him walking again, which got a lot of heat from spinal injury victims. Matthew Reeve says his father wasn't around that much when he was growing up. For example, when Matthew was born, the following day Chris went off skiing with his friends. Chris didn't want to commit to marriage with Gay Exton, as he didn't want to see a repeat of his own family difficulties, with his mum and dad separating and remarrying twice. Chris was always trying to please his father, Franklin Reeve, who was disappointed that Chris played Superman and felt it was an embarrassment. Chris just couldn't do anything to please him. I've read 2 books on Chris Reeve, one called Man of Steel by Adrian Havel, and Reeve's own biography, Still Me. This documentary doesn't go into too much detail about his work outside of Superman. Producer Pierre Spengler goes through some of his films and mentions they were commercial failures. Chris took too many risks in his career, reducing his fee to play in indie movies or roles that would distance him so far from that Superman image. These decisions would end up damaging his career. Matthew says by the time he was 10, his dad was taking on these TV movies of the week to just pay the bills. I suppose the only minor complaint I have about the documentary is the use of archival footage, some of which is clearly pulled from YouTube, especially the behind-the-scenes material from the Superman films exhibiting that very familiar compressed look as they zoom in on the footage. I'm sure they could have sourced better copies, and the frame rates are a bit juddery in places. Some clips on the Superman films are used incorrectly. For example, we have Chris talking about Superman the movie, but they show a clip from Superman 4, which did bug me a little bit. Being very familiar with Reeve's life and career, I learned a lot of new stuff about him, and most importantly his children, who are really key to this documentary, getting their stories across and the difficulties they faced, and how they all came together to support their father along with Chris's incredible wife Dana. It's a heartbreaking documentary, but also a heartwarming one. Highly recommended for fans of Christopher Reeve, and for those who just love a good story about a man who was at the top of the world with his success and power, but didn't quite get the respect he deserved as an actor from those he looked up to. His life was thrown into the balance, but that drove him to be more than just a regular man, but a hero to many, without the aid of a red cape. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to click the like button and hit the bell to be notified of my latest reviews. Big thanks to my patrons and YouTube members for supporting the channel. If you want to get involved and gain access to exclusive videos and take part in Q&As, follow the link below.